Why didn't you tell me that the Heavenly Lord had ordered not to reveal it to her until the Great Law was completed? We have always been in contact with the Dragon Tiger camp. As soon as it is completed, it will be sent there immediately. The tiger feels that the righteous sect is really not worthy of this Wudang group. Wudang Taoist. They are really a bunch of wretched people. A flower bone has to be beaten to remind because the god doctor is very angry. Look, sure enough, with her strong physique, she couldn't bear it and immediately pressed Huyen Van Tuyet down. You dare to do this to my granddaughter? Are you really a Taoist? You die quickly for me. The muscular arm is almost strangling the throat of Wudang Ba Sword. The protagonist had to rush out to persuade him because he was afraid of death. He would not be able to pry any more information. God doctor, please stop. But how can words stop actions when angry? She is really an immoderate person. Thinking about it, he also used divine power to free Wudang Ba Sword. The strong body of Cam Lo Tu flew back to the four elders, and then also reminded the subordinates to temporarily take it to another place to stabilize their mood. Back to the main job. What is the purpose of Ton Thien Hoi? Nano warned that due to shock and loss of too much blood, his heart and lungs were weakening. The death rate is now very high, up to 98%. The protagonist hurriedly shocked to stimulate the heart and lungs, but he did it without any reaction. This time it was a bit dark because he died immediately. Knowing that, I asked first to avoid guessing nonsense. Just hope that the god doctor knows something about Ton Thien Hoi, the doctor who strangled the death Taoist, or what is really strange. It is thought that they are all human beings. I thought they wouldn't be different from my section, but it turned out not to be. Thinking about it, the elder Yan spoke up. After successfully capturing the Wudang Ba Sword, he also found something. It was inconvenient to talk just now, so I didn't say it. Before I got this thing. Huyen Van Tuyet burned it. Zhuang Elder touched on it and thought it must be what the god doctor was looking for because its material was very special. To be sure, the protagonist asked Nano to analyze it, but even the system couldn't do anything because its program didn't have data. It's been a long time since Nano was locked out of information, right? You can't recognize the word, can you? The word on the next page looks like his handwriting, not the kind of word I know. The system mentioned that it is indeed simplified characters, also his handwriting. The way of writing is simpler than traditional characters. The program is locked out of information, so it can't let the owner know what Nano can do. Now it can only translate these simplified characters. The original text is that I made a mistake when targeting him. He is not the founder of the demon sect for nothing. Because of greed, I messed up. It is said that this is a body map that can create extreme martial arts bodies that the god doctor is looking for, but the content is not very similar. Moreover, it is related to the demon's ancestor. It is likely that the person who created this book is the ancestor of Kuk Dao Luk Vo Man. If you think about it in the direction of the god doctor, it is quite reasonable. The part that was not burned later would have known more information. It's no use anymore. You guys give it back to her. After that, Thien Pham reminded everyone to leave here immediately. So the work at Fat Kiem Kok has been resolved. Cam Lo Tu also apologized for the overaction just now. But the protagonist also didn't care because he also had enough information. Suddenly she continued to kneel down to beg for something else. My niece is trapped. The pirates on the Huang Ha River have been in my hands for over a year now. How can an old woman like me just stand by and watch? Please, benefactor, help this old and weak woman find her granddaughter. Because it took too much time, he didn't want to agree and also raised his voice to reply that this matter is very difficult for him. Most of the subordinates also understand that if they wander in the Central Plains for too long, they will encounter danger. No one said anything anymore and they turned around and left immediately. Before reaching the cave's entrance, the woman continued running ahead, then fervently begged with the same old words, imploring desperately if he could save her granddaughter. She would devote her entire life to serving as a loyal dog or horse. It was unbelievable that a deity of his stature could utter such words. Her oath of loyalty was a very advantageous proposition for her section. Cam Lo Tu had no other choice but to comply, so then Thien Pham also used his divine power to channel into the body of Luk Dien, pulling the woman up and responding, "If you said so, then you must keep your word." Thus, there was another journey in this Central Plains. Cam Lo Tu, tears streaming down her face, expressed endless gratitude. and we would reach the 18 river passes just as the Judge Ho had said. Suddenly, it dawned on Ho Bong that the story told at the Yellow River had become reality. He had read the chronicles of Chung Guian's travels, which mentioned a group of skilled martial outlaws named the 18 River Bandits. Although their leader was surely long gone, these river bands were still formidable. Duong Dan Hoa had lived in Hubei for a long time, so he had a more detailed explanation. They only target merchant ships, paying no attention to passing boats. As they were planning to leave quickly, the divine healer interrupted, inquiring about the protagonist's reputation. Despite being late, could you tell me about it? I have no reason to conceal my identity. It's not like you have anything to hide either, Mr. Pham. Your name sounds unfamiliar, yet somehow familiar. Could it be that you're the new sect leader of the Heavenly Demon Sect? Have I just agreed to become a follower of the Demon Sect leader? Let's not use such terms. The group set off together to rescue the healer's granddaughter. When they asked Duong Truong Lao, he wasn't sure about Long Ho Camp's location, but he knew there were 18 camps, making it impossible to visit each one. Aware of the leader's concerns, he reassured them. Someone else was well informed about the 18 river bandits. As they were setting out, a mysterious group arrived at the Broken Sword Tavern, urging them to proceed a few hundred meters further. The scar-faced leader remained silent, quickening his pace as if sensing something. Then he suddenly stopped. His followers found it perplexing until they caught a faint scent of blood. Let's head in that direction. They arrived where the scar-faced man had noticed something. Before they lay a meticulously flattened area, different from its surroundings. Upon closer inspection, they found bloodstains on a sword, confirming that skilled fighters, perhaps even masters, had been involved. Another follower discovered traces nearby, likely left by the Celestial Union. As one more follower broadened the search area, he found something. A book soaked in blood, seemingly intentionally hidden by the Vodang Bakim. When opened, the scar-faced man's lips curled into a sinister smile. So, this is what Voda Bakim sacrificed his life to hide. The ultimate technique that pushes the body to its limits in accordance with the hierarchy of martial arts in Central Plains. Currently, there are 3 powers vying for control. The Northern Orthodox Sect, the Western League of Darkness, and finally, the Southern Heavenly Demon Sect. The martial world has been divided into 3 major forces for hundreds of years. In the realm of these major powers, bloody battles have erupted incessantly. However, there's one place that remains quiet amid the blood-soaked battlefield. It's the only location adjacent to the 3 major powers, yet it's a neutral ground with no ruler and no conflict. This place lies at the central position, namely the city of Matkin. However, the peace in Matkin is not because the 3 major powers desire peace. Rather, engaging in conflict would upset the balance. Thus, none of the 3 major powers can act. Thien Pham's group has arrived here for the first time, so everyone feels quite curious. Bak Kai reminded Ho Bong not to draw too much attention, as his name tends to attract notice. Fortunately, without Van Q, the group split up to take action. Yen Truom Elder went to Hubei, Duom Truom Elder took the master to investigate somewhere, and the rest went inside to inquire. As they entered the gate, the mocking laughter of the women resounded. You gentlemen don't want to have some fun tonight. We still have plenty of pretty ladies here. Ho Bong noticed the women in front of him revealing their chests, while Bak Kai panicked at the lecherous behavior of his teammate, missing Van Q and the late Vuong Cant dearly. If they were together, surely those two would indulge. After passing through the alley full of beauties, the group arrived at their destination, a luxurious building called Gil Thuom Lao. Inside, all they saw were courtesans welcoming guests. Could they gather any information from here? Even the master thought so. However, his subordinates couldn't do anything but look elsewhere. Just as they were pondering, countless women surrounded them, inviting them in. The new voices echoed, "Come here for a drink, dear guests." Thien Pham's cousin had to close his eyes and recite prayers continuously, while Bak Kai blushed all over. Duong Elder had to speak up to disperse the crowd, only allowing them to sit where there were 3 teacups. The beautiful women understood immediately, offering to lead them downstairs. As they ascended to the 3rd floor, everyone looked around cautiously, unlike the first 2 floors filled with martial artists. Once seated, a servant appears, ready to take their orders. When they were ready to order, they could call the servant. This was the information market, similar to the righteous sex associations, and the wicked Sect's underworld, as it was a neutral zone. They make money by providing information. The 3 teacups they ordered before symbolized the hierarchy of information. The red cup represented lower-tier information, the green cup middle tier, and the white cup higher tier. The information Thien Pham sought was at the middle level, as informed by the servant. He hurriedly poured tea for them, asking the same old question repeatedly. Have you decided on your order? Then Duong Dan Ho said something like a code phrase, sounding like a signal. After hearing it, the servant understood and reminded them to wait a moment. Suddenly after, could they move to the upper floor? The owner personally wanted to receive them. This was too sudden, so Duong Elder had to relay it to the sect leader. According to the divine, the upper floor was only for guests seeking top-tier information. It was indeed suspicious. However, they needed information, so they decided to meet first. Thien Pham found it perplexing, but he could sense no danger upstairs. So the group followed the steward to the master's door, where they were graciously invited inside. Immediately, the door to the room opened, and the owner enthusiastically welcomed them without formalities. I am Van Gogh, the owner of Nil Thuong Lao. We are honored to personally receive esteemed guests like you. Before they could sit, Duong Dan Ho interfered, asking why they were called up here. It was clear that they were only asking for middle-tier information, yet the tavern owner explained that the desired information was at the top-tier level. He continuously hinted at a vague dreamlike pursuit. He explained that for a group seeking information like theirs, there were many backers, and this was just one of them. He wondered if they knew where they were. Ho Bon recognized the name 18, which the man boasted about. This young man was indeed quick-witted. He stated this not to sell information about them to avoid disappointment, but to promise that if they sought the location of Long Ho Camp without ill intentions and paid a fair price, he would sell it. As he finished, there was a commotion outside. They were surrounded by about 30 people. The tavern owner continued, "You have just returned from the 10,000 Peaks not long ago, right? Do you agree? The Northern Sect's leader, Duong Dan Ho, and even I are curious about who this gentleman before us is. Someone with such a high status in the demon sect like you, Duong Dan Ho. Why are you treating us with such respect?" Seeing that the name Pham Thuong Jiao Chu was present, his subordinates were considering taking action immediately. It seemed they didn't need information. They were just discussing the price they had to pay. Van Gogh understood that the young master in front of him must hold a high position in the demon sect, so he intended to investigate Thien Pham's identity thoroughly. If he still wanted that information, then surely the reason seeking for Outlaw Ho Chai was extremely important. Who knows, perhaps they would obtain valuable information. At this point, Thien Pham began to speak, responding to him with cryptic phrases. Just by capturing the supporter here, one could immediately feel the power in their hands. Immediately after, a guard who was serving him was dragged over for questioning. The master of the lair was furious at their audacity. Questioned, "What are you doing in our territory? I have no need to converse with a mere subordinate." Indeed, he had noticed they were using bait to test their intentions. Now he wanted to ask the young man directly. His gaze shifted towards the attendant. Why would a master of a sect pretend to be a martial artist guard? What's the evidence? The impostor continued to insist that he was just a guard. Why do you sound so ridiculous? The master secretly assessed the situation outside. The aura was intense as his subordinates were ready for action. Just by slightly touching his guard, they reacted vehemently. What should we do now? The impostor continued to transmit messages for instructions, but his master, overwhelmed, couldn't come up with anything. He silently cursed the monster in front of him, realizing he couldn't even budge a finger against someone who had broken through to the peak of perfection. Clearly, the impostor was afraid, knowing a single mistake could cost his life. If he exerted a little more force, surely his head would be separated from his body. In this situation, what could be done to spare yourself? Then he began to whimper, whispering softly for mercy. Some guards outside heard his plea. "Please spare my life." This was a signal from their master. Recognizing the signal, they burst into the room. The impostor screamed in fear, trying to stop them, but he couldn't. Many guards rushed in, attacking Thien Pham's subordinates. The ones nearby also joined the fray. They looked towards their captured master. A sword swung towards them, but was blocked by Duong Truong Elder with a simple gesture. He deals easily with the attackers. Even a second-rate martial artist is mediocre compared to me, he thought. A few others tried to attack, but he quickly handled them all. Despite being the weakest in the group, he wasn't one to be trifled with. A few others were planning to attack, but he quickly managed with them using simple moves. More people rushed up from downstairs. Some shouted orders to kill them all. They targeted the protagonist's younger brother, but despite their numbers, he fought back fiercely. The balance was clear in favor of the protagonist. A large figure attacked from behind, but Duong Yelder easily dodged and countered with a powerful kick, knocking him down instantly. Although outnumbered, the enemy hesitated to attack, intimidated by his strength. Some even withdrew to avoid endangering their comrades. Those who remained stared in awe, realizing they had to demonstrate their worth. The onlookers gradually backed away to avoid putting their lives at risk. Some gasped in amazement, seeing the sword dance, demonstrating that he was indeed the weakest in the group. Clearly, there was no deception in his words. Earlier, when he saw the marks left by the heavenly demon founder on the mountain wall in the Broken Sword Valley, he had a realization. And now, his realm had reached its peak. He shouted at himself, "I must be quite strong now." Those watching became visibly nervous. In the end, everyone had to sheathe their swords and raise their hands in surrender. The protagonist was very pleased with the display of strength from his younger brother. He decided to stop suppressing the troublesome Lair Master. Just as the latter was released, he gasped for air as if he had been suffocating. He immediately knelt down to apologize for concealing his identity. It turned out his name was Du Hyan, the Lair Master here, and the name Van Gogh was just his steward. Are you talking about the support of Thap 8th Waterway, or something? Does that mean they are a subordinate force? He began to explain in a low voice that it was only cooperation for benefit. Ran over to do it in one go, and then reminded him that his voice also mixed a bit of color around him. Don't say such nonsense words in front of my monarch anymore. Then Nam Ching got straight to the point. I was asking where Dragon Lake Tri was located. Then they started transmitting to discuss. We should still invite the people in the sad house. If things keep going like this, things will get serious. But the owner of the mansion retorted, do you think they will obediently accept it? Even though the people here are scary, we can still talk. Fairy Fam can hear everything and I want to see what it is. After making them so scared for a while, Du Hyan took charge and said, Sir, can you come back today? Actually, today there are Hoing Ha and 3 ghosts here. Hoing Ha and 3 ghosts are famous. He is famous for his cruelty and is also the leader of the Bakfam camp in the Thap 8 Waterway camp. It is rumored that they plunder merchant ships. Men will be brutally murdered and women will be captured. They are evil people, even though the government has placed a bounty on those who can capture them, but they still blatantly walk around the streets. Their uncle is the Hoang Ha tyrant. This is the Sand Mother. According to Elder Duong's story, Thien Pham has also heard about that overlord. He is one of the 9 bosses of Volam and also the 4th of the 8 great leaders of the evil Sect Alliance. Temporarily haven't met him, but he still affirms that this is a peerless master. He is a person with a cruel personality as he loves his brothers and family. Before, Bakfam Camp's ship was once attacked by the Yellow River Hedgemen at that time. He also heard this news, so he was very angry and wanted revenge. So he personally came out to solve the problem and ended up killing all the people involved and their families. Because they have the boss to protect them, the water pirates continue to rampage, but the government officials do not dare to touch the male lead. I feel that they also have a good support, right? The owner also had to tell me about it by sound. Bakfam Camp is the place that supports us. This castle will be protected. If we provide information, in fact, among the subordinates here, there are spies planted by Hoang Ha Tam. For the great hero, we only need to get information. That means it's over, but for me, I still have my family's livelihood and the destiny of the Dark Sect will end, so he already knelt down and screamed and begged sincerely. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't. Even if they can sell information to you, even if they are high-ranking people in the demon religion, the Yellow River 3 ghosts are still people who should not be touched, but I didn't expect that there would be such a thing. The Yellow River 3 ghosts or something. On the 2nd floor, Star Du Hyan quickly replied, Thank you for your understanding. The 3 ghosts who were currently on the 2nd floor received information, and 2 of his trusted subordinates immediately went down to see how tough they were. Seeing the tiger and white flag flying down, the castle owner was scared and spoke up clearly. Just now, he said he would sympathize with me, but Thien Pham immediately turned it around. I have never said that to you. After all, what are you trying to do? The hero in the male lead's hand showed aura of energy, and he didn't clearly respond, but the smile on his lips looked very sinister. Many people who were watching were also curious. I couldn't understand for a long time what the host and the guests were talking about. Then suddenly one of them had his neck twisted to the side. Immediately after a preliminary check of the situation, he was completely dead. With just one attack, the spies were now scared, trying to be tamed, and then ignoring the three ghosts. We should still take care of our bodies first. As expected, they fell into a trap when they didn't know that Thien Pham had the ability to hear sound transmissions, which is still the old trick when using magic. He had the power to eliminate the gangsters. He stretched out his hand and grasped it tightly to strangle those guys. Several bodies had already fallen to the ground. When he saw them, he also realized that the guys in front of him were spies. It took a month for the three ghosts of the Yellow River to infiltrate us and find the three people. He came here for a bit and already found them, but as soon as he finished thinking about it, his subordinates were present immediately. The three devils were all carried by the tiger and white flag to the shop owner and manager. Eyes widened in fear as they looked at the three gang members. As expected, if you look closely, you can't go anywhere. However, he still continued to transmit sound in hopes that Thien Pham would explain why the senior brother acted like that. Clearly, the destiny of the dark sect has been set against them, but what does your destiny have to do with me? After hearing this, Du Huyen was surprised because he thought this special guest would sympathize with him. If it's your matter, then deal with it yourself. He will definitely not do as others wish. I was mistaken, it's too dangerous. Everything our sect has built will collapse from now on. I won't talk to this bunch of masters anymore. He approached to investigate a fully clothed figure who had been chosen as the first. He interrogated loudly, "Do you know who I am? Quickly confess this nonsense. Dare to mess with anyone. Do you want to die so much that you become a ghost?" Just after being beaten, the protagonist approached and asked directly, "I don't care who you are, but just answer one question. If you answer, your life will be over. Do you dare kill me? Do you know who our clan leader is?" After he finished speaking, he called the master to come out to laugh for himself. Looking at him, his fate was sealed. The protagonist ordered immediate execution without finishing his sentence. Its head immediately parted from its neck. Blood splattered on the faces of the remaining two, making them afraid. He continued to assert, "If you keep talking nonsense, you will meet such a death." The one wearing earrings began to ponder. If he continues like this, they will all die. Elder Duan noticed the strange attitude, so he headed to the head of the sect. He also came closer and asked, "Where is the Dragon Lake camp planning to ambush us? Do you think our big brother of the Yellow River will betray us? But if they keep doing this, they will kill us. So we must ensure our lives first. You guys go along the Yellow River to the east about 900 meters. You'll encounter a mountain called Vansun and Long Ho Che lying at the entrance where the river splits from that mountain range." To confirm the truth of his words, Thien Pham turned to look at the master, who dared not speak but nodded to confirm the truth. With an attitude like this, there's no need to ask this dark sect anymore. As soon as the fat one finished speaking, he loudly said, "Release me quickly because I've said it all. It seems you're mistaken. Did I ever say I would spare you?" After hearing this, they were shocked and couldn't say anything more, since they were no longer effective. Perhaps they would soon reincarnate into another life. The protagonist ordered his subordinates to kill them all without sparing anyone. The one who had just confessed became indignant and started cursing at Chu Thien Pham, but he couldn't say anything as his head was already separated from his body by Duom Truom Elder's sword. He then his blade turned towards the remaining one, perhaps the youngest, who had already wet his pants without any action, looking at the bodies torn apart in pieces. The people around were frightened. This was indeed the demonic sect. I thought they were just slightly more cruel than the evil faction, but I didn't expect them to be unintentional this ruthless. Both the master and the manager were disenchanted because Thien Pham's group had obtained information that they would surely kill them all. Luckily for them, he didn't. Du Huyen shouted again, "Hold on, senior. Why did you spare us? You already told me the location of the Hoang Ha Tam Kwa. We're on the same boat, so naturally, we should help each other. In short, I've got the necessary information, so I'll pay you a fair price. The master saw up with relief because the spies had died. If they were alive, they might be misunderstood. Hearing this, he also reminded them of one more thing. It seems you don't know, but there's still another spy. No one is allowed to leave the tower these days. The group went outside, pretending to be very respectful to the senior leader. How could he find that spy? I just fooled him. There's no spy at all. This continuous trickery is really good. The master and the dark sect will always search for it, then doubt each other and live in fear. Before they can act, we must quickly go to the Dragon Lake camp and save the daughter of the divine doctor. So he and his subordinates set off in the right direction indicated by those Hoang-Hatam devils. Indeed, after a while, they reached a river dividing into two directions. The deputy elder explained that the smaller stream would lead to the Van Sun duel. When they arrived at the riverbank, it was also the time when they reached the bustling place, where boats and camps were busy coming and going. Surely this was where Kamlotu's granddaughter was being held captive. They must cross the mountains to see them. Escaping like this, it's difficult to find them. However, he still continued to transmit sound in hopes that Thien Pham would explain why the senior brother acted like that. Clearly, the destiny of the dark sect has been set against them, but what does your destiny have to do with me? After hearing this, Du Huayan was surprised because he thought this special guest would sympathize with him. If it's your matter, then deal with it yourself. He will definitely not do as others wish. I was mistaken, it's too dangerous. Everything our sect has built will collapse from now on. I won't talk to this bunch of masters anymore. He approached to investigate a fully clothed figure who had been chosen as the first. He interrogated loudly, "Do you know who I am? Quickly confess this nonsense. Dare to mess with anyone. Do you want to die so much that you become a ghost?" Just after being beaten, the protagonist approached and asked directly, "I don't care who you are, but just answer one question. If you answer, your life will be over. Do you dare kill me? Do you know who our clan leader is?" After he finished speaking, he called the master to come out to laugh for himself. Looking at him, his fate was sealed. The protagonist ordered immediate execution without finishing his sentence. Its head immediately parted from its neck. Blood splattered on the faces of the remaining two, making them afraid. He continued to assert, "If you keep talking nonsense, you will meet such a death." The one wearing earrings began to ponder. If he continues like this, they will all die. Elder Duan noticed the strange attitude, so he headed to the head of the sect. He also came closer and asked, "Where is the Dragon Lake camp planning to ambush us? Do you think our big brother of the Yellow River will betray us? But if they keep doing this, they will kill us. So we must ensure our lives first. You guys go along the Yellow River to the east about 900 meters. You'll encounter a mountain called Van Sun and Long Ho Che lie at the entrance where the river splits from that mountain range." To confirm the truth of his words, Thien Pham turned to look at the master, who dared not speak but nodded to confirm the truth. With an attitude like this, there's no need to ask this dark sect anymore. As soon as the fat one finished speaking, he loudly said, "Release me quickly because I've said it all. It seems you're mistaken. Did I ever say I would spare you?" After hearing this, they were shocked and couldn't say anything more, since they were no longer effective. Perhaps they would soon reincarnate into another life. The protagonist ordered his subordinates to kill them all without sparing anyone. The one who had just confessed became indignant and started cursing at Chu Thien Pham, but he couldn't say anything as his head was already separated from his body by Duam Truam Elder's sword. He then his blade turned towards the remaining one, perhaps the youngest, who had already wet his pants without any action, looking at the bodies torn apart in pieces. The people around were frightened. This was indeed the demonic sect. I thought they were just slightly more cruel than the evil faction, but I didn't expect them to be unintentional this ruthless. Both the master and the manager were disenchanted because Thien Pham's group had obtained information that they would surely kill them all. Luckily for them, he didn't. Du Huayan shouted again, "Hold on, senior. Why did you spare us? You already told me the location of the Hoang Hatam Kwa. We're on the same boat, so naturally, we should help each other. In short, I've got the necessary information, so I'll pay you a fair price." The master saw up with relief because the spies had died. If they were alive, they might be misunderstood. Hearing this, he also reminded them of one more thing. It seems you don't know, but there's still another spy. No one is allowed to leave the tower these days. The group went outside, pretending to be very respectful to the senior leader. How could he find that spy? I just fooled him. There's no spy at all. This continuous trickery is really good. The Master and the Dark Sect will always search for it, then doubt each other and live in fear. Before they can act, we must quickly go to the Dragon Lake camp and save the daughter of the Divine Doctor. So he and his subordinates set off in the right direction indicated by those Hoang Hatam devils. Indeed, after a while, they reached a river dividing into two directions. The deputy elder explained that the smaller stream would lead to the Van Sun duel. When they arrived at the riverbank, it was also the time when they reached the bustling place, where boats and camps were busy coming and going. Surely this was where Kamlotude's granddaughter was being held captive. They must cross the mountains to see them. Escaping like this, it's difficult to find them. And she gradually woke up, but upon seeing the stranger, the palace shouted loudly, causing the old chief to cover her mouth and explain that they had been sent by the divine healer to rescue her. Therefore, if they remained silent, they could safely leave without any worries. He assured her that he was only temporarily unconscious due to acupuncture. They quickly left and arrived at Bat Kai, where they felt that these two resembled each other too much. His task remained simple, to carry Miss Cam away. Although he didn't agree, he reluctantly did it because his position was inferior to the old chief's. All three hastily fled to the location where the sect leader had prepared a boat. However, before taking 2 steps, they heard many approaching footsteps, and several guards discovered that someone had intruded and shouted to warn them. It was clear that they couldn't feel any anger, but suddenly, many pirates rushed onto the boat from the inside with terrifying expressions, as if they were about to devour others. In an instant, the 2 subordinates of the mortal were surrounded. A loud voice spoke. Indeed, as the master predicted, although they were only cautiously vigilant, it seemed that they were lucky. It turned out that the camp leader, Paco Ton, had planned very carefully. Surprisingly, they dared to take the wife of the deputy camp leader. It seemed that these 2 didn't listen carefully to the story of the old man. Even though he clearly stated that Cam Mai Duong was the wife, they still appeared surprised. On Bak Kai's back, she had been bitten many times, causing him to appear in pain. Not only was he bitten, but there was also a knife wound in his abdomen. He couldn't understand what the granddaughter of the divine healer was thinking. Therefore, he had to release this woman immediately. How could the granddaughter of the divine healer treat him like this? If the other guy said the wife of the deputy camp leader, meaning she was his wife, it seemed that he knew that they had come here to rescue the military counselor. He spoke, reminded them to surrender, otherwise they would not be able to compete with the experts on this boat. In this place, water surrounds them. They couldn't go anywhere. Now Duong Dan Ho understands everything. It was a trap. He had wondered why they anchored downstream, connected to the Imperial River. It turned out to isolate them from the beginning. No matter how cunning they were, they couldn't have expected this. When the scar-faced man saw that he was about to give up, he ordered the guards to come and hold them but be obedient. They wouldn't hurt them, but fortunately for him, only the rope was cut, and his head remained on his neck. This action also meant that he wanted to fight a big battle with the pirates. The camp leader continued to threaten, saying there were only 2 of them. They couldn't do anything. They didn't see anyone else respond. He didn't believe it, because who would have time to come here? He could feel the anger surrounding them. To ensure his safety, he quickly went out to check the boat's net. Just as he looked out, he immediately spotted the immortal and his younger brother flying quickly from below, soaring high, causing him to freeze in place. He couldn't do anything, fortunately, except put his feet down a bit wetly because he didn't remember what lightness skill was as he was in the arms of the leader. The camp owner now realized that his boat was in danger. His subordinates gasped in horror, looking up at the sky. Even the military counselor no longer believed his eyes. The pirates were extremely shocked. The protagonist had to use his flying sword to maintain a little dignity with them on top. The mortal predicted that there were only 2 people worthy of being called masters. One was the man in the hat who had reached the realm of transformation, and the other was the camp owner in the superlative realm. The leader below also saw the flying man who had killed Vodang Ba's sword. He mistakenly thought he was the master of the extreme knife, the newly emerging 6 martial arts. The protagonist also understood that they knew about the incident at the abandoned sword tavern, that they were members of the Heavenly Society. Upon hearing this, he started not understanding how they found out and became so skilled. The vice chief quickly reported the situation. The divine healer's granddaughter is currently an ally of this pirate group. It seems she has collaborated with them to lure us in. The immortal looked at Cam My Duong for a moment to calculate everything. In the end, he decided to take the divine healer's granddaughter with him. As he declared this, the large figure was lifted into the air and then brought to the place of the subordinates. It seemed that this person still couldn't bear to return to the abandoned sword tavern. Miss Cam, please cooperate with us a little because we can't stay up here forever, he said. I have to deal with these pirates myself. He drew his sword and drew a boundary line that made everyone disenchanted and dared not cross. And of course, they also understood that once they crossed it, their lives would be in danger. The owner spoke up, trying to calm him down. I know you have reached the highest realm, but can you smoothly take that woman away while you're on a solitary boat like this? Are you worried about me? If so, then try jumping down and see. The scar-faced man, not knowing what to do, hastily asked the camp owner if the child was still on the boat. Are you planning to use her for something? The deputy camp leader had suffered enough beatings himself, so he had to let the girl hide with him. Anyway, they didn't know, so it was useless. The owner understood that if the immortal couldn't rescue the divine healer's granddaughter, she wouldn't intervene to save her husband and son, both of whom were in their hands. Do you think she will cooperate? After hearing this, the vice chief understood why Cam My Duong's attitude was so strange. She had no choice but to join forces with them to save her child. If you command, the child on the boat will die immediately. If you touch a finger of my subordinate or lady Cam, step off this boat, you know what will happen. The scar-faced man angrily cursed him for daring to use a child's life for jokes. Stop causing trouble and return Lady Cam. If you do that, we will let you live peacefully. But the protagonist didn't agree to this condition, so the owner was surprised because he knew that doing so would kill the divine healer's descendant and would not receive any help. He also didn't hesitate to ask them to kill freely. Do you know what you're talking about? To prove our credibility, we've already killed a few men. This warning is for anyone who wants to threaten the Heavenly Lord. The white dragon blade shot out from the hand like a cone and slashed through some nearby pirates. This was a warning for whoever wanted to threaten the Heavenly Lord. The camp leader began to panic and shouted, "What are you doing? Do you want to see that child's head separated from its body? Didn't you say that if you touch a finger of my subordinate, you will kill it? But no matter what, you're the leader of the pirates. You should keep your word because you can't do that." Finally, he ordered if the leader's hand fell, then kill the child immediately. As he was about to finish his warning, a burst of energy from the hand of the immortal flew straight towards him. Now his subordinates were confused and shocked. Not knowing what was going on, blood spurted out, while Pak Hotoan hadn't even realized it yet. Then he also regretted the part of his body under the boat's floor. Why are you still standing there? Get your hands on it. The camp owner's arm has fallen off, so follow the order. It turned out there was no child on the boat, so they hesitated like that. Feeling the atmosphere silent, he had to add a few more strikes to the landlord. Seeing the leader wounded but no subordinate daring to rush in to assist, they only screamed in vain. As he struck, the protagonist also threatened, "Do you think you can deceive me with a non-existent child's trick? Now, your subordinates finally understand the truth. There's no child on the boat." Occasionally, he mistook the sect leader for being able to read minds or hear others' thoughts. Now he understood why he could overthrow the 6 great sects. But the biggest problem is that woman. This situation would repeat itself if she continued to worry about her child. Why doesn't he know there's a child on the boat? We need to act while his attention is still focused on the landlord. After thinking it through, the leader immediately transmitted a message to the subordinates to run up to the shore and bring the child back to the boat. If any issues arise during the chaos, they're allowed to kill it on the spot. It's our plan of the Heavenly Alliance. We'll face obstacles if the Divine Doctor helps them, so we absolutely cannot allow anything to disrupt it. After hearing the instructions, the subordinates quickly left using their martial arts skills, disappearing very quick. They jumped down under the boat so Time Fan couldn't do anything. Whether your family's cards are real or fake, it doesn't affect me right now because of the pain, so the landlord began to plead. "Please spare our lives, and we'll let you go. Then we'll return the child." I won't guarantee that because you surrendered, but someone else didn't. Hearing this, the Scarface man still didn't understand the intention behind it. That means I have nothing more to say to you. Seeing his leader being tortured so painfully, a few of them jumped in to help, but as soon as they started attacking, Tan Fan's figure disappeared. They looked around in confusion, not knowing where he was. Of course, he was right behind that landlord. Are you planning something against me? Just as he said this, the divine power in his hand controlled millions of spirit swords on the boat. He had secretly heard the conversation about kidnapping the child, so those carrying out this mission found it challenging to keep their lives. Nano manipulates the swords and accurately targets those underwater. Do you think swimming under the river will save you? Or do you think you can get away with it? Knowing there would be trouble for his subordinates, the Scarface man swam towards his goal to prevent Tan Fan from killing his men. Busy focusing on his target, Tan Fan let him freely attack. But as the sword was about to strike, his other hand pushed him away. He started to panic because he thought the protagonist had eyes behind his back, while the swords were still flying towards their chosen targets relentlessly. The Scarface man quickly realized they were in a predicament and urged to avoid his men to swim down to the danger. Two swords flew towards their target. Indeed, when they touched the water's surface, they returned to their normal state. No matter how extraordinary the creatures were, they couldn't maintain their spiritual essence at such a distance. As long as those two survived, no matter how powerful your family is, you can't stop them. Where are they going? Maybe you know. Now, confirm whether it's a trick or a real deal. Tan Fan had his own way of dealing with this issue. He continued to channel his energy into one sword, the one responsible for dealing with the two escapees. One of them was Duong Truomle. He was a bit confused because it was his first time flying on a sword. He and his sword rushed straight towards those people. The landlord's face was expressionless because he was too powerless. The elderly leader flew straight across the river. However, when he was about to reach the shore, magic was running out, so he had to fly into the air. Now leading the charge in kidnapping the child was Duong Dan Ho. What do you want now? My subordinates have reached their destination, said the Scarface man, still trying to act as if he knew where the child was. Tan Fan simply replied, Isn't it where your camp is? You figured out the secret and been discovered, because surely the protagonist heard the conversation you just had with the landlord. Now the child or the divine doctor is not the problem. The real problem is that this monster has to keep you guys here and run back to inform the Heavenly Alliance. Since one master of disguise has left, I and the pirates just need to attack without restraint. Then he shouted to the deputy landlord, You only have 3 people, but we have over 300 martial experts. What is there to fear? Knowing this, but he was also worried because he didn't know how to deal with Tan Fan, who had only one person. The heroes of the Thilo that Benchi, only standing by in horror, hadn't finished speaking yet when the energy flew from nowhere straight towards him. Not only that, but it also conveniently dealt with a few other pirates. The landlord's face was pale because he was too helpless. He then reluctantly gave up his intention to escape and fought back with all his strength. From this position, it will be more advantageous for me. Your family has made a big mistake, said the Scarface man as he watched the energy flying towards him. Slowly, he drew his sword and prepared to confront the enormous energy emanating from the imposing figure. It looked very eye-catching. It was the extreme Dao Divine Blade, infused with the energy of the dragon soaring into the sky. It rushed towards the Scarface man like a hungry dragon pouncing on its prey. He persistedly, but he couldn't touch the protagonist's body. Unbelievably, it seems like the power of my strike should be stronger than his, right? But this guy's sword energy was reversed right after the collision. A series of other energies enveloped his body below. The celestial realm continued to leap closer to him when he couldn't defend himself. His body was now being tortured horribly. Although the situation was dangerous, I still didn't want my opponent to die immediately. I moved back to sever his arms, and he screamed in agony and blubbered profusely. Now, he lay motionless, unable to do anything. I approached closer to appreciate the artistic work I had just executed. Although it was futile, he still thought of various things in his mind. With his current condition, we couldn't even see his face clearly. If things have come to this, nothing else matters. The celestial realm positioned his hands correctly, and he appeared very frightened. pleading urgently as if begging for mercy, but perhaps it was too late. Lightning struck repeatedly, making him and his subordinates sweat profusely. No one dared to interfere. The consciousness of the master was completely lost. I temporarily spared his life to have time to investigate the heavenly union. His body was then transferred to the care of his younger brother. The tiger's task was to take care of him meticulously. However, my attention turned to the group nearby. They seemed frantic, as if they were seeing a monster, dropping their weapons and intending to jump into the river. But perhaps their actions were futile. The sword spirits on the boat gradually trembled as they were remotely controlled. With 63 weapons activated, the buzzing sound echoed in the head of the Celestial. It was a signal that all targets around had been locked. The swords rotated into a cone shape to identify fleeing targets. The pirates had to stop in disbelief. They couldn't trust their eyes anymore. What was happening? Were they dreaming? Why didn't the garden cats chase the mice? I quickly tightened my grip to control over a dozen swords flying down from the sky, slashing downwards towards the victims. Nowhere to run, they only scream in pain. Was that creature a demon rising from hell? Someone hurriedly requested to cut the chains to widen the gap. If his spiritual energy was depleted, we wouldn't stand a chance. Hearing this, the others didn't understand the implication, but they rushed to act. If you want it that way, I'll lend a hand. Without further ado, the swords flew over and the thick chains immediately broke. Both boats were pushed further apart. Some sobbed in relief, but the protagonist's intervention puzzled them. He spared our lives after seeing what we did. Indeed, if killing wasn't an option, he would have to destroy the entire boat. Many voices rose strongly. The boat was tilting, and he could launch an attack here. As he was about to anchor down to the river below, there were too many things obstructing him. Looking at the scene, he felt extremely powerless. He sat down in frustration, realizing that no matter what they did, they couldn't survive here. This was a hell created by that monster. Another life had been spared slightly. After a while, everything returned to calmness. The only thing was the lingering scent of blood. The river seemed to show respect to its master. In such a short time, the master had dealt with all these pirates. My Duong was acupunctured and couldn't speak, but it seemed she didn't want to see her husband's corpse before her eyes. Her heart wrenched with tears streaming down her face. Bak Kai also seemed curious. The pirates were dead, yet why did she still feel sad? Miss, please bear with it a little longer. We will soon bring the child back here. The more she heard, the angrier her ugly face became. Both of the protagonist's subordinates also looked at each other, not understanding why the woman was so angry. At this moment, on the shore, the eldest leader was gradually infiltrating inside. Silently, he deals with each guard with a single, gentle stroke of his knife. The chief guard's subordinates were separated from their necks. This was the 9th name on the killing list. It seems that except for the guards, women, and the child, everyone else has boarded the boat. The mansion seemed deserted. It must be the residence of the camp leader. Knowing that there was no one left to protect it, Duong Dan Ho naturally entered inside. Here there is also a wet nurse taking care of the baby. But before Madam could say anything, the elder had already suppressed her. Thus, they successfully gained control over the child of Madam Mai Duong. Sincerely apologizing for having seen my face, Madam Mai Duong couldn't let her live to avoid making a big fuss. Therefore, the elder also uses acupuncture to make the child fall asleep. After tidying up, it was time to go out and meet the sect leader who had just arrived at the riverbank. The elder's eyes became surprised as the time from entering to exiting was less than half an hour. Why did the situation become so horrifying in such a short time? It seemed like everything had been destroyed already. Could it be that he had used his ultimate move? Nearby, the transmission of the Hong bomb sounded a signal for him to wave his hand so that the elder wouldn't have to go to the river anymore. Then both of them went to the place of the sect leader Thien Pham. Seeing the baby, he seemed very pleased. Then he also noticed nearby the body of the other sect leader was no longer there, and it was just waiting for an investigation. Duong Dan Ho also felt scared because she knew the sect leader's preference was to sever hands. Why did suddenly my right hand feel icy? Turning attention to Madame Mai Duong, he asked why she became like that. I don't know because it's too strange, so I haven't interrogated her yet. She looks at us as if we're enemies. To comfort herself, since her husband's death, the deputy elder took the baby to his side and seeing his child made tears well up in his eyes and his nose trembling, moving Thien Pham's heart. He immediately ordered the release of the acupuncture, acting very quickly, and Madame Mai Duong regained her voice. I thought she would thank me, but it turned out she didn't. Instead, she screamed as if she had just been robbed, too deafening, so I had to gag her. What is the miss doing? If she continues like this, I'll cut her tongue. So she obediently listened without making any noise anymore. You have already killed my disciple. Please forgive me. Why don't you understand the meaning of those terrifying words? Each effort. Why did you use the miss's intention as the deputy sect leader? You already know that. So why do you still act against him? It's really hard to say. Who would have thought those tears were for the one who kidnapped her? Conveniently cursing. Madame Mai Duong cursed Thien Pham as a despicable person, bullying the weak, killing innocents for no reason. Truly the demon. Listening to the anger, Thien Pham felt embarrassed as clearly he intervened to help, not to thank him like that. Upon examination, it was known that she had developed a complex syndrome after being kidnapped and abused. When this symptom is severe, the victim will develop feelings for the kidnapper. It's really unbelievable, but it's true. He understood that she had formed a close bond with the deputy sect leader for a long time. Although she had to endure a lot, the enmity towards the child prodigy would no longer follow the original intention. Now, do you agree to come here and save me, which is clearly the intention? It's obvious, so surely it's to ask my grandmother to save someone, right? The elder deputy explained that we believed she was kidnapped and brought the baby out to threaten, so we didn't consider the situation. Madame Mai Duong sarcastically replied that she thought we didn't know that, then she wouldn't get what she wanted. We absolutely won't get what we want. I will stay still, not go anywhere. Let's see what you can do. If you drag me away, I will also tell my grandmother, and it will be a long time before I work for you. And you will also lose the person you love in exchange for the river. You've ate it so much, so you replace the sect leader to respond. It's really ridiculous. Do you think we are like the orthodox ones? If so, you haven't heard the voice of our sect leader yet. Hearing the two words, sect leader, Madame Mai Duong was surprised. Ah, I understand. In this world, there is only one place with a sect leader. Thien Pham stepped forward to talk about the moral implications of losing loved ones and whether she valued it or fell into the trap of the kidnapper's affection. But it doesn't concern me. Whatever threat you make, it will be a long time before I change my mind. My grandmother will mediate between us. Just wait and see. After hearing this, Thien Pham laughed loudly at the sheer fabrication. Indeed, only the dead remain silent. What does Senior Duong think of my words? He pondered. In a battle like this, the death of a hostage is just like setting a meal. The relatives are grateful. The divine doctor might be saddened, but it will pass. Cam Mai Duong is only now trembling with fear. You thought we came here to save you. Yes, we came to save you because you are the divine doctor's disciple. Besides that, you are nothing. And isn't it your own family who abandoned that life-saving float? The power of heaven decrees it. Then a sudden sound echoed, and human force Diane received a swift and just death. Pham felt no regret, only peace, knowing that the child beside him slept soundly, unaware of the corpse nearby. The person from the Tom Thien Association was also disappointed. This person must be truly insane to kill the disciple of the divine doctor. As he pondered, the protagonist turned to interrogate him, gripping his neck firmly. Do you think closing your eyes means I can't see? Look at yourself now, a pitiful sight. You can't explain your actions, can you? Perhaps now it's time for you to face King Yama. Meanwhile, at Long Ho Camp, inside a dense forest, a young man was carrying someone on his shoulders, traversing a large lake. He felt uneasy with countless thoughts swirling in his mind. Why is it so deserted? Shouldn't they be resting by now if they've finished plundering? Still, it wasn't his concern as he already had her. The closer he got to the camp owner's residence, the more uneasy he felt. As he ventured in, he was startled led bushes to find, hidden in the dead body of Duom Ho Dan. The broken neck indicates a brutal end. Who could have done this? The more he looked, the more he realized there were about 500 people here, all children and women. He deduced that the young man must have dumped his spoils in front of the camp owner's house before advancing. Knocking on the door yields no response. Should I enter? He wondered aloud. A faint echo replied, Enter. The atmosphere grew eerily quiet. Vuong Bon's cautious mobilization accelerated. He went to a few neighboring houses, luckily finding someone who was still alive amid the chaos of the night. "What do you want? Dai Heap?" the person asked. Without a word, Vuong Bon requested the whereabouts of Lady Camfu, to which the person hurriedly responded that she was on the boats docked on the other side. After hearing this, he respectfully appreciated them and left, leaving behind fear in the hearts of the homeowners. The old lady collapsed to the ground, muttering in pain, feeling she needed to move elsewhere. She couldn't understand her own fear and worry. If she injured the young man, that monster would appear again. The Thon Thien Association was a secret organization of the righteous sect aiming to create a utopia where evil ceases to exist. Led by 5 leaders including heaven, earth, human, yin, and yang. Most members were martial artists. Their goal was to eliminate all those affiliated with the demonic sects. Surprisingly, they employed any necessary means to achieve this, showing they were unworthy of the righteous sect's name. Thien Pham then continued his questioning. The 5 leaders are not divided by rank, except for the guild leader. Everyone else is equal. Continuously pressing for information from the top ones, although his gang's cohesion was weakened due to being in a state of delirium, his mental resilience was still strong. Despite consuming more self-purification elixir, he could still endure to this extent. Beginning to speak deliriously, the top person is Nam Kong, the Jia. The chief of Nam Kong's clan is Huyen Van Tu, and the chief of the dark side is Tat Tho of Sichuan Duong Mon. While planning to continue, it seems his body is overloaded. Upon checking, it's found that this person is very stubborn when resisting anesthesia. His body keeps convulsing violently. I continue to transmit internal energy to sustain his life a bit longer to gather more information. But this time is too unlucky. Just as I needed to know who the guild leader is, he suddenly stopped breathing. His eyes opened wide, muttering a few incomprehensible words. Only the guild master knows who the guild leader is. This time, he has completely collapsed and stiffened. Overlooking this matter, I immediately asked the elder quartet about the situation of Nam Kong Kan. However, Duong Dan Ho is also puzzled because he had few interactions with him during his time in Trung Nguyen. However, he knew that Huyen Van Tu and Duong Tak Tho were both top-notch experts. Nam Kong Kan was also the leader of the 5 great martial arts masters before becoming the boss of Thon Thien Hoi. He was once the 3rd hero among the 17 heroes of Vo Lam Min. Moreover, he was the captain of the Camp My Duong Penal team. As he was about to continue, it seemed his body was overburdened. Upon inspection, it was found that he was very stubborn when resisting anesthesia. His body kept convulsing violently. Upon hearing this, the main protagonist spoke up to inquire further. The elder quartet secretly reminded the sect master that there were suspicious individuals appearing at the lower levels, believed to be from Thon Thien Hoi. After speaking, he signaled those around him to remain silent. Indeed, there was a terrifying aura approaching. Upon a quick glance, it was a young man carrying a tiger, seemingly looking for Cam Mai Duong. The elder quartet and Bok Kai leaped out from the bushes to intercept him. Seeing the crowd, the youth hesitated, then gradually began to speak in a discouraging tone. There were clearly only 2 of us angry, but except for the deceased, the rest were not counted. However, just as he was about to say something, his afraid gaze turned to the corpses of Cam Mai Duong, who had been dead for a while now. This made him anxious, and finally, he pointed his finger accusingly. "Are you the ones who did this, right?" Without waiting for a response, Tan De Kiem was drawn from behind. Bak Kai remains bewildered, not understanding what was happening. In a flash, his figure was already moving towards the target, raising his sword. Fortunately, the elder quartet appeared to assist. It seemed that both sides were evenly matched, observing and estimating each other's abilities. Both sides engaged in continuous fighting, creating a noisy atmosphere in the quiet night. Then, with a clenched fist, Duong Dan Ho increased his strength. Seeing this, the youth became worried. A punch towards his key boundary caused a loud noise. Although large in stature, he found it difficult to resist and quickly withdrew. "It's too cruel. I was about to deal with the weakest among you." However, upon hearing this, Bok Kai's face showed displeasure. The elder reminded the opponent in front that he was clearly a step above. "I've seen it, haven't I? This person knows how to use the twin swords and twin sabers." Reflecting for a moment, he'd also realized Isn't this person the unparalleled swordsman? In the north, the main demonic powers are the East Chief and the Southern Chief, while the main demonic powers in the East are the battle god Musagitai. With little information, he is nicknamed the Master of Fist Fighting. Finally, there is the unparalleled swordsman Vuong Xin. He was originally one of the 17 rivers of Trunglayan, the Thap Bathai, and the former leader of the Thap Bat Camp, formerly known as Tai Lo Tam Thap, which was called the Thap Bat Camp of Vanthoi pirates. It once ruled the galaxy, causing the army to be extremely afraid. Then one day, his wife was murdered, and he, in anger, alone killed more than 3,000 pirates. Because of this incident, he continuously slaughtered demonic sects, so orthodox and martial arts criticized heavily. Since then, he has disappeared from the world of Jianghu. Hearing this story, Vuong Bon did not deny it. Perhaps we shouldn't use this key boundary now that it's been recognized. What should we do now? That lame guy seems much stronger than me. Although Cam Fuvan is dead, what can I do? It's too cumbersome, so he rolled his eyes everywhere. Indeed, there is only one logical way: to run away. But Bok Kai was still resentful because of the taunting remarks earlier. Enraged, he pursued with the second sword, demanding justice. With fists clenched, he retaliated, equally fierce, causing the opponent to pause. Do you think running will solve everything? Ha! Then suddenly, Bok Kai changed his posture. He lowered his fist and kicked fiercely at his opponent. The opponent was not one to be taken slightly. After blocking, he retaliated with a strong blow of his own. Ha Thing Pham continued to maneuver, delivering another powerful kick. This was the kid I was just about to target. His key boundary seems low,